recently started using the Tinder app a few months after a really bad breakup with my girlfriend. I figured that it would probably be a good idea to try and meet new people. With all that being said, I wasn't having much luck with the app. I did manage to go on this date with a girl, but she ghosted me after the first date. After that, people that matched with me on Tinder mainly just seemed to be scammers. They would send me sketchy links or try to have me send them money, or claim to be prostitutes, all of the above. At this point, I was pretty fed up with the app and was about to delete it from my phone. As soon as I was about to do that, I got a notification saying that somebody had matched with me. It was this really cute girl who was a college student and we were the same age, so I started messaging her. We were going back and forth for a bit and we moved our conversation to Snapchat. We shared a lot of the same interests and we were talking for a while. After that, she was sending me a lot of cute pictures of herself and asked me if I was down to come over and see her. I obviously said yes, and we set up a time for me to come over to her place. She then asked me to bring some vodka and Red Bull, which I also agreed to. So with me naturally being the sketchball that I am, I decided that I would check out the address an hour and a half early. I ended up parking a few blocks away from the address on my phone. As I got out of my car, I decided to leave my phone, keys, and wallet in my back seat. I wasn't about to get robbed over some stupid Tinder scam. As I approached the house, I started to feel pretty nervous, and that meeting up with this person might have been a bad idea. It was a big 3-story house with all the lights off and no cars in the garage. The place pretty much seemed like it was vacant. As I walked up the stone steps that led to the front door, I started to look around on the front porch. The place was abandoned. I could tell that the place was deserted because there were no curtains covering the window so I could see inside of the house. They were just big, dark, empty rooms. I was honestly super pissed off at this point and felt pretty stupid. I then turned around, let out a big sigh, and started looking around the neighboring houses. This was weird, I thought. There was nobody walking down the street or people coming in and out of their houses. Just total silence. I then angrily messaged the girl on Tinder and said, "You're hilarious. Thanks for wasting my time." As I started to look at the other houses again, I could have swore that I heard footsteps come from inside the house. I then turned back around and started peering in through the living room window. As I looked around, I became confused. It looked like somebody was peeking their head at me from behind a doorway. As I looked further at what seemed to be a person's face, that's when I had chills run down my spine. I stood there in fear as I was getting a better look. As he slowly started approaching me, I noticed that this person must have at least been 7 feet tall. He had really long, black, dirty hair, big black eyes, and practically didn't have a nose on his face. He then let out a sinister grin and started charging towards me. At this point, the adrenaline had kicked in and I was sprinting back towards my car. I had only glanced back for a second to see that he was catching up to me really fast. My heart was pounding as I hastily got into my car and locked the doors. I then reached for the back seat and was struggling to grab my car keys. As soon as that was happening, I heard violent pounding and screaming come from my car window. This guy's about to break the glass, I thought. As I finally grabbed a hold of my keys and put them in the ignition, I'll never forget what I witnessed that night. As this lunatic was screaming at me and trying to break my car window, he was looking at me straight in my eyes like he wanted to kill me. I never floored the gas so hard in my life. As I was speeding down the street, I glanced back for a quick second only to see that he was gone. Shortly after that, I called the police and reported him on Tinder as much as I could. To this day, they still haven't been able to find him. I'm a 22-year-old female college student and I recently started using Tinder. I'm also pretty socially awkward and bad at meeting new people, so I thought that using the app would help with my social anxiety. I quickly ended up going on a date with this guy whom I didn't really have anything in common with, but I figured I'd give him a shot anyways. We met up at a bar that was really close to my college campus. By the time I had gotten there, I had noticed that he had already drunk 2 full pitchers of beer. We had talked and hung out for a couple hours, and he seemed nice enough, but I just quite wasn't feeling it. I wanted to leave, but he convinced me to go to another bar to get one last drink. So seeing that it was still early in the night, I agreed to go with him. As we were sitting at the bar and we were talking for a little bit, there was a couple making out next to us. He then looked at me and asked how I thought people would react to us making out. I began to feel sort of tense and quickly realized where this was heading. I tried to laugh and make a joke about no one paying attention to us. He then said in a stern voice,
"We should make out."
I nervously laughed and told him that wasn't a good idea and excused myself to the restroom. As I came back to the bar, he had a shot waiting for me and insisted that I drink it. No shot for him, just for me. I quickly declined the shot. He then became very upset and said that he was ready to go. At that point in the evening, he had consumed 2 pitchers of beer, 4 margaritas, and 2 more pints, yet still displayed no sign of being intoxicated. Nonetheless, I knew that there was a lot of alcohol in his system and asked if he was okay to drive. He then became extremely defensive and we exited the bar, taking off in opposite directions. When I had gotten home, I texted him just to make sure that he was okay because he had so much to drink. My heart fell into my stomach when I looked at his response. His reply was, "I'm going to have fun killing you tonight." Right after reading that text, I quickly locked all of my doors, closed all the windows, and called the police. I locked myself in my bedroom as I was waiting for the cops to arrive. That's when I heard tapping come from my window. It was the same guy. He kept saying, "You better open this window, I just want to talk to you." Shortly after that, my window had shattered and I had begun to scream. That's when I heard police sirens outside of my house and officers yelling at the man. They then quickly arrested him. A couple of weeks after the arrest, I had learned that the man had a long history of domestic violence, assault, and committing battery on women. I don't plan on using Tinder anytime soon. So I've been seeing this girl for a few weeks now off of Tinder. I honestly really dislike the app, but desperate times call for desperate measures. She's really cool, laid back, and pretty much down for anything. After a month had gone by, that's when things started to get weird. And I mean like really weird. I remember the first time it happened because I've never heard such morbid humor with so much detail. We were hanging out at my place one night, having a really good time with each other, and that's when she randomly made a joke about killing me. She said that if she was going to do it, she would first use chloroform on me, put me in the trunk of her car, drive 8 hours into Upper Michigan, bury my body in the forest, and burn my clothes while destroying my phone. I became really uneasy when she said all of this, and my reply to her was, "What's wrong with you? That's super messed up and I don't want you joking around with me like that." Her response made me feel even more uncomfortable as she started to giggle and said, "Don't worry, it'll be like falling asleep, you won't even notice." She had this really dark glint in her eye, almost as if she became aroused by thinking about all of this. I was honestly pretty bummed out because I was really starting to like this girl, but these kind of jokes gave me a gut feeling that I needed to step away from this. After our date was over with at my apartment, I told her that I didn't want to see her anymore, and that's when the harassment started. She kept saying, "Come on, it's just a joke, I wouldn't do something like that." The unsettling part of this is that she had sent the same message to me over 28 times through text. She also kept calling my phone at extremely late hours in the night, with a follow-up text that said, "I have a shotgun in my room." That's when I blocked her. After that, she started showing up to my work and kept asking to see me. We ended up having security escort her out of the building. A couple of weeks have gone by now, and it's been complete radio silence. I start to feel somewhat relieved. The time is 2 a.m. I'm eating ice cream and watching my favorite TV show, and that's when I started to hear light knocking at my door. My eyes opened extremely wide in fear as I knew who it probably was. I decided to just ignore it, but the knocking continued, getting progressively louder. I then slowly crouch walked up to the door to look through the peephole. That's when I started to feel sick to my stomach. It was the girl from Tinder, and she was carrying a 12-gauge shotgun. I quickly crept back into my living room to grab my phone and call the police, only to find out that my phone was dead. I began to panic, as the fast knocking at my door turned into violent pounding. I then quickly put my shoes on and started to climb out of my window, which is 3 levels high. I almost broke my ankles as I landed on the ground, jumping from my window. I staggered towards the nearest house, explaining what had transpired, and begged them to call the police.